The rain-slicked streets of East River Heights gleamed under the sodium lamps, turning the cracked sidewalks into a mosaic of puddles that reflected the flickering neon of a distant pawn shop. It was the kind of autumn evening where the chill seeped through threadbare coats, carrying the metallic tang of the nearby docks and the faint rot of forgotten warehouses. Elena Vasquez clutched her daughter's hand tighter as they stood on the stoop of their crumbling tenement, the eviction notice crumpled in her other fist like a bad omen. At 32, Elena had fought tooth and nail to keep this roof over their heads, nursing double shifts at the community clinic, scraping by on tips from late-night diner runs. But the landlord's greed had won out. Mr. Hargrove, with his greasy smile and ledger full of fabricated fees, had finally called in the sheriff. "Mommy, why can't we go back inside?" little Sophia asked, her voice a whisper against the patter of rain. At 7, she was all wide eyes and tangled dark curls, clutching a stuffed bear that had seen better days. Elena forced a smile, kneeling to meet her gaze, the cold concrete biting through her jeans. "It's just a mix-up, mi amor. We'll find somewhere warm soon." But inside, her stomach twisted. The apartment was all they had. No family to call, no savings buried in a mattress. Just the weight of unpaid bills and the echo of Hargrove's parting words. "You're out by midnight, or the locks change." The sheriff's cruiser idled at the curb, its lights cutting through the gloom like accusatory beams. Deputy Rollins, a burly man with a mustache that hid his perpetual frown, stepped out, clipboard in hand. "Ms. Vasquez, you signed the papers. No extensions." His tone was flat, procedural, but Elena caught the flicker of sympathy in his eyes. The same look she'd seen from caseworkers years ago when her husband had walked out, leaving her with a newborn and a mountain of debt. "Please," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "Sophia's got school tomorrow. Just one more night." Rollins glanced at the girl, then back at the notice, shaking his head. "Can't do it. Hargrove's got lawyers up to here." He gestured vaguely, then nodded toward the cruiser. "I can drop you at the shelter on Elm, if you want." Elena bit her lip, tasting blood. The shelter, crowded cots, the smell of bleach and despair, strangers' coughs in the night. Not for Sophia. Never for her daughter. "We'll manage," she murmured, turning away as Rollins retreated to his car. The engine growled to life, tires hissing on wet asphalt, leaving them alone in the downpour. They trudged 2 blocks to the all-night laundromat, its fluorescent buzz a harsh welcome. Elena fed quarters into a dryer for warmth, not clothes, and they huddled on a plastic bench, Sophia dozing against her side. The hum of machines drowned out the distant wail of sirens from the docks, but Elena's mind raced. Hargrove owned half the buildings in this neighborhood, rumors swirling about his ties to shadier dealings. Late-night deliveries, men in dark suits lingering too long. But what could she do? Call the cops. They were the ones who'd enforced the eviction. As the clock ticked past 2 a.m., the door chimed, admitting a figure that cut through the steam like a shadow. Tall, broad-shouldered, in a tailored wool coat that screamed money amid the bleach-scented poverty. He shook rain from his dark hair, scanning the room with eyes like polished obsidian. Elena straightened instinctively, pulling Sophia closer. The man, mid-40s maybe, with a jawline etched by hard years and a scar tracing his left temple, approached the vending machine, but his gaze lingered on them. "Rough night." His voice was low, accented faintly with the gravel of old Brooklyn, carrying an authority that made the laundromat feel smaller. Elena met his stare, chin lifted. "We've had better." No point in pleading. Pride was all she had left. He nodded, inserting coins for a coffee that steamed black and bitter. Instead of leaving, he slid onto the bench opposite, a respectful distance away. "Hargrove's work, I take it. Man's got a reputation for squeezing the little guy." She tensed. How did he know? "You know him?" A ghost of a smile. "Everyone around here knows Hargrove. Name's Victor Russo. I invest in properties. The pause was deliberate, loaded. Elena had heard the name, whispers in the clinic break room, warnings from patients about the Russo family, not just investors. They were the shadow over the docks, the ones who made problems disappear. Mafia, some said, though no one dared say it loud. Sophia stirred, mumbling in her sleep, and Victor's expression softened fractionally. Kid looks beat. You got a place lined up? Working on it. Elena's tone was clipped, but exhaustion cracked her armor. Why do you care? He sipped his coffee, the steam curling like secrets. Let's say I don't like seeing good people tossed like yesterday's trash. Hargrove owes me a favor, or 10. One call, and that eviction's history. Her pulse quickened. A lifeline or a hook? And what's the catch, Mr. Russo? Nothing's free in this city. Victor leaned forward, elbows on knees, his presence filling the space without crowding. Smart. No catch tonight. But tomorrow, dinner. My treat. We talk about options. Real ones. For you and the girl. Elena studied him, the way his coat hid the bulge of what might be a holster, the faint scent of expensive cologne cutting through the detergent haze. Gratitude warred with caution. This man could fix everything or drag them into something worse. But Sophia's shivers decided for her. One dinner, that's all. His nod was final, like a deal sealed in blood. I'll send a car, 8 sharp. He stood, dropping a card on the bench, thick stock, embossed with a simple VR, and vanished into the rain as suddenly as he'd appeared. Elena pocketed the card, her fingers brushing the eviction notice. The laundromat's dryers thrummed on, but now the night felt heavier, charged with possibility. Who was Victor Russo really, and what favors did a man like Hargrove owe him? As Sophia nestled closer, Elena wondered if she'd just stepped from the frying pan into the fire, or if this unbelievable offer was the spark that would change everything. Outside, unseen in the alley across the street, a figure in a hooded jacket lowered his phone, the screen glowing with a snapped photo of the laundromat's window. The message sent, "Target acquired. Vasquez and Kid confirmed." The rain swallowed his footsteps as he melted into the shadows, but the weight of watching eyes lingered long after. The morning sun clawed its way through the grimy windows of the laundromat, casting long shadows across the linoleum floor that smelled of stale detergent and cooling metal. Elena stirred, her neck stiff from the bench, Sophia's head still pillowed on her lap. The dryers had long since hummed to silence, leaving only the distant rumble of delivery trucks on the docks as the city's pulse quickened. She checked her watch. 6 a.m., and gently roused her daughter with a whisper. Time to move, Sophia. Adventure awaits. Sophia rubbed her eyes, clutching her bear. Are we going home now, Mommy? Soon, Elena lied softly, folding the damp blanket they'd scavenged from a lost and found bin. Home was a dream deferred, but Victor Russo's card burned in her pocket like a promise, or a warning. She hadn't slept much after he'd left, her mind replaying his words, the way his eyes had flicked to Sophia with something almost paternal. Russo. The name evoked fragments of overheard conversations at the clinic, shipments vanishing from warehouses, cops looking the other way, a family that ruled the East River shadows without ever stepping into the light. Was he really offering help? Or baiting a trap? They slipped out into the crisp air, the rain's aftermath leaving puddles that mirrored the overcast sky. Elena steered them toward the corner bodega, trading a few dollars for coffee and a stale pastry. As Sophia nibbled, Elena scanned the street, empty save for a battered sedan idling at the light, its driver obscured by tinted glass. Paranoia, she told herself, but the hairs on her neck prickled. Hargrove's eviction had felt personal, his smirk too satisfied, as if he'd relished the cruelty. And now Russo? Coincidence in this neighborhood was rarer than mercy. By noon, they'd checked into a dingy motel on the edge of the industrial district, the kind of place where the neon sign flickered vacancy, like a distress signal. The room was a shoebox. Sagging bed, threadbare carpet reeking of cigarette ghosts, and a window overlooking rusting shipping containers. Elena paid cash for 2 nights, her last reserves dwindling. "Just until we sort this," she told Sophia, who explored the space with cautious wonder, tracing cracks in the walls. The afternoon dragged in tense quiet. Elena pored over the eviction notice again, noting the notary's stamp, dated yesterday, but the ink looked fresh, almost smudged. A discrepancy? She snapped a photo with her cracked phone, intending to show it to a legal aid hotline later. But as she scrolled for numbers, a knock rattled the thin door. She froze, heart hammering. "Ms. Vasquez, delivery from Mr. Russo." The voice was muffled, professional. Elena peered through the peephole. A young man in a crisp suit, holding a garment bag and a paper sack. No visible weapon, but his posture screamed security, shoulders squared, eyes scanning the hallway. She cracked the door, chain still latched. "What is it?" He smiled thinly, extending the items. "Clothes for you and the young miss. Dinner's at 8. Car arrives at 7:30. No pleasantries, just efficiency." She took the bag, the fabric inside whispering luxury. Soft wool, clean lines that no thrift store could match. The sack held takeout from a nearby deli. Fresh sandwiches, fruit, even a small toy truck for Sophia. "Tell him, thanks," she said. But the man was already retreating, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. Sophia's eyes lit up at the food, devouring her portion while Elena changed into the dress. A simple black number that fit like it was tailored, hugging her frame without ostentation. It felt wrong, this generosity, like stepping into someone else's skin. "Why are we dressing up?" Sophia asked, twirling in her new sweater, soft as a cloud. "A meeting, remember? To fix our home." Elena brushed her daughter's curls, masking her unease. The toy truck sat on the bed, its wheels gleaming, too perfect, like surveillance bait. She checked the room again, lifting the mattress, peering behind the curtain. Nothing. But as dusk fell, the motel's parking lot filled with the low growl of engines, shadows lengthening under the sodium lamps. At 7:20, a black SUV pulled up, sleek and armored, its tinted windows reflecting the motel's faded facade. The driver, a stocky man with a buzz cut and earpiece, tipped his cap without a word. Elena buckled Sophia into the back seat, the leather cool and scented with polish, a far cry from the bus fumes she knew. "Where are we going?" she asked, sliding in beside her daughter. "Mr. Russo's place, private club on the waterfront." His reply was clipped, eyes on the rear view as they merged into traffic. The drive wound through the city's veins, past graffiti-tagged warehouses where forklifts beeped like wary sentinels, over bridges humming with rush-hour horns, the East River glittering darkly below. Sophia pressed her nose to the window, pointing at barges laden with crates, their manifests hidden from prying eyes. Elena's mind raced. Russo's investments likely included those very shipments, the kind that skirted customs with greased palms and false papers. Was Hargrove's eviction a message, or collateral in some larger game? They arrived at a nondescript building tucked between fish markets and loading docks, its facade unassuming, but the alley patrolled by discreet guards. Sodium lights buzzed overhead, casting wet asphalt in amber pools that smelled of salt and diesel. The driver escorted them through a side entrance, up a service elevator that whirred smoothly, no creaks or rattles. Elena's hand tightened on Sophia's as the doors opened to a private dining room, polished oak tables, crystal decanters glinting under low chandeliers, the distant lap of waves against pilings filtering through reinforced glass. Victor Russo waited at a corner table, rising with old-world courtesy. His suit was midnight blue, tailored to perfection, a gold watch catching the light. "You clean up well," he said, his voice warm but edged, pulling out a chair for Sophia first. Thank you for the clothes. And the food. Elena sat scanning the room. 2 servers in the shadows. A man at the bar nursing a drink but watching too intently. No overt threats, but the air hummed with unspoken rules. Sophia fidgeted with her napkin, and Victor leaned down. That truck outside? It's a good one. Ever been on a real dock, kid? Ships bigger than buildings. Her eyes widened. Really? He chuckled, signaling for appetizers, platters of grilled seafood, steam rising with briny promise. As they ate, conversation flowed carefully. Elena shared snippets of her nursing shifts, the clinic's endless line of dock workers with crushed fingers and suspicious scars. Victor listened, nodding, his questions probing but not invasive. Hargrove's been skimming off my properties for months, he admitted over wine she barely sipped. Evicting folks like you. That's his way of laundering the take. I pull the plug, he squirms. Elena's fork paused. So this dinner, it's business for you. Partly. His gaze held hers, intense. But I see a fighter in you. And the girl's got spirit. I could use that. Legit work at the clinic I fund, housing in a safe building. No strings, except loyalty when it counts. Loyalty. The word hung like smoke. She glanced at the window, where the river churned black under storm clouds gathering. A boat's horn blared, low and mournful. What exactly do you do, Mr. Russo? Properties, you said. He smiled faintly, tracing the rim of his glass. Enough to keep the city running, enough to protect what's mine. Before she could press, his phone buzzed, a discreet vibration. He checked it, expression hardening imperceptibly. Excuse me. As he stepped away, murmuring into the device, Elena noticed the server at the bar shift, his hand brushing his jacket pocket. A phone? Or something else? Sophia whispered, Mommy, that man's staring. Elena's pulse spiked. Outside, headlights swept the docks. A convoy? Or watchers closing in? Victor returned, face composed, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed him. Everything's set with Hargrove. Locks change back tonight. But we should wrap this up. She stood, gathering Sophia, gratitude souring into suspicion. What had that call been about? The photo from last night, perhaps? Or something worse? As the elevator descended, the building's hum seemed to vibrate with secrets, and Elena wondered if accepting his help had just painted a target on their backs larger than any eviction notice. Who was trailing them now, and why did Russo's protection feel like the first link in a chain? The elevator hummed downward, its mirrored walls reflecting Elena's tense profile and Sophia's sleepy yawn. The private club's polished confines gave way to the service level's stark concrete, where the air thickened with the brine of the river and the low thrum of generators powering hidden security feeds. Victor Russo walked a step behind, his presence a steady anchor amid the unease coiling in Elena's gut. The server from the bar, had he been watching too closely? Lingered in her mind, his hand dipping into that pocket like a tell in a high-stakes poker game. And Victor's phone call? The way his jaw had tightened, voice dropping to clipped syllables. It wasn't Hargrove. Something bigger stirred in the shadows of the docks. The SUV waited in the alley, engine idling like a predator at rest, its headlights cutting twin beams through the gathering mist off the water. The driver held the door, but Victor gestured for Elena to pause. I'll see you home myself, he said, his tone brooking no argument. Hargrove's locks are being swapped as we speak, but tonight, better safe. Sophia climbed in first, nestling into the leather seat with a contented sigh, the toy truck clutched in her lap. Elena slid in beside her, the door's solid thunk sealing them into the cocoon of luxury that felt more like a vault. Victor took the front passenger seat, exchanging a nod with the driver, a silent code that spoke volumes. As they pulled out, The alley's sodium lamps painted the wet asphalt in fleeting amber. The river's lap against pilings a rhythmic underscore to the tension. The drive back wound through the industrial sprawl, past chain-link fences rattling in the wind, and warehouses squatting like forgotten beasts, their loading bays yawning dark. Elena watched the side mirrors, her nurse's instincts sharp for anomalies. A pulse too quick, a shadow out of place. There, a silver sedan, 2 cars back, its plate catching the light. New York tags, but the way it mirrored their turns felt deliberate, not coincidental. That car, she murmured to Victor, keeping her voice low so Sophia wouldn't stir. It's been with us since the bridge. He glanced in the rear view, expression unchanging, but his fingers drummed once on the armrest, a subtle tell. Probably nothing. Traffic's thick. Yet he murmured something into a concealed earpiece, and the driver accelerated smoothly, weaving toward a side street lined with derelict fish processing plants. The scent of salt and decay seeped through the vents, mingling with the leather's polish. Sophia dozed off, her breaths even, oblivious to the undercurrent. Elena's mind raced. Russo's investments weren't just bricks and mortar. Whispers at the clinic painted the Russos as the unseen hand steering the dock's illicit cargo, crates of contraband slipping past manifests, rivals vanishing into the river's depths. Hargrove's eviction. A pawn's move in a larger chessboard, perhaps to flush out debtors or test loyalties. And now her? The photo from the laundromat. Had it been for Russo or someone else? The SUV turned onto their old street, the tenement looming under a sliver of moon, its fire escapes dripping residual rain. No sheriff's cruiser now. Instead, a locksmith's van idled at the curb, a lone worker swapping tumblers under a portable lamp's harsh glow. Victor stepped out first, scanning the shadows before helping Sophia down. All clear, he said, but his eyes lingered on the rooftops, where a distant silhouette might have been a pigeon or a spotter with binoculars. Inside, the apartment felt alien yet familiar. The same peeling wallpaper, the faint must of neglect, but now the locks gleamed new, unyielding. Sophia scampered to her room, exclaiming over the unchanged mess of toys, while Elena checked the kitchen drawers, her few bills still there, untouched. Victor hung back in the doorway, coat draped over his arm. My man will station outside tonight. Rotation every 4 hours. You'll have numbers if you need anything. Gratitude clashed with her independence, a push-pull that left her chest tight. This loyalty you mentioned, does it come with a ledger? What do you really want from us? He met her gaze, the scar on his temple silver in the dim bulb's light. Protection's a two-way street, Elena. Hargrove's not the only one with eyes on this block. Old rivals, scores unsettled. You took a stand against him. That makes you a player now. His voice softened, almost confiding. I lost a sister young, to streets like these. No code lets that happen on my watch. The vulnerability cracked his armor, humanizing the magnate, but suspicion lingered. As he turned to leave, his phone buzzed again, insistent. He silenced it, but not before Elena glimpsed the screen. A text overlay on a grainy feed, coordinates blinking near the docks. Go rest, he said, stepping into the hall. The door clicked shut, and she bolted it twice, the new locks reassuring yet confining. Sophia was already tucked in, bare under her arm, when Elena's phone vibrated. A burner number, unknown. She answered warily. Ms. Vasquez, Deputy Rollins, off the record. That eviction notice? Notary's a fake. Hargrove's guy forged it. Caught wind of an audit on his books. But watch your back. He's got connections deeper than the river. Her blood chilled. Forged? So the sheriff's sympathy hadn't been idle. He dug, risking his badge. Thanks for the heads up. Why now? Rolls called in a favor. Russo's reach is long, but so's Hargrove's spite. The line went dead, leaving static and the creak of the building settling. Elena peered out the window, the street below empty, save for the SUV's taillights fading. But across the way, in the pawnshop's alley, a flicker, metal glinting, then gone. A cigarette, or a lens. She drew the curtains, heart pounding. The apartment was theirs again, but at what cost? If Hargrove's forgery tied back to Russo's favors, whose side was she on? And as thunder rumbled over the docks promising a storm, Elena wondered if the real eviction was just beginning. Whoever was watching from the shadows would strike before dawn, and whose convoy would arrive first to claim the board. If you're enjoying this story so far, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. The first cracks of thunder rolled over East River Heights like a warning shot, shaking the tenement's thin walls and rattling the loose pane in Elena's bedroom window. Rain lashed the glass in sheets, turning the alley below into a blurred watercolor of shadows and sodium glow. She hadn't slept. Couldn't, with the burner call from Rollins echoing in her ears, his voice gravelly with risk. Forged notice, Hargrove's spite, Russo's reach. It all tangled like the storm's wind-whipped branches outside, pulling her deeper into a web she hadn't spun. Sophia snored softly in the next room, her breaths a fragile rhythm against the chaos, but Elena paced the creaky floorboards, the new locks mocking her with their shine. She pulled out the eviction notice again, spreading it under the kitchen's single bulb. The notary's stamp, dated October 15th, looked off up close, the edges bleeding like fresh ink under cheap pressure. Elena had seen enough fudged charts at the clinic to spot a fake. The seal's embossing too shallow, the signature looping unnaturally. Hargrove hadn't just evicted them. He'd fabricated a crisis to cover his tracks, perhaps dodging Russo's audit or settling a score with a rival. But why them? A poor nurse and her kid, collateral or bait? She snapped another photo, this time zooming on the discrepancies, and texted it to the legal aid number she'd finally reached earlier. No reply yet, just the storm's growl filling the silence. A low rumble, not thunder, cut through the downpour. The SUV's engine, idling curbside like a sentinel. Victor's guard, rotation or not, was a constant now, his headlights slicing the rain. Protection, he'd called it. But Elena felt the weight of eyes, Russo's, Hargrove's, or worse. She cracked the curtain, peering down. The driver hunched over the wheel, earpiece glinting. But beyond him, in the pawnshop's recessed doorway, a flicker again. The glow of a phone screen, hooded figure tapping furiously before vanishing into the gale. Her pulse quickened. Not a smoker, a spotter, relaying positions. To whom? The clock ticked past 3 a.m. When her phone buzzed. Legal aid, finally. Ms. Vasquez? That's a clear forgery. Notary's license lapsed last year. Hargrove's crew's been using ghost stamps for months. File a complaint with the DA, but tread light. His ties run to the unions down at the docks. Russo name come up? Elena's grip tightened. He's the one who fixed the locks. Said Hargrove owes him. A pause. Papers rustling. Russo? Yeah, that's a hornet's nest. Word is he's squeezing Hargrove over a warehouse deal. Shipping manifest short on paper, long on. Extras. Your eviction might be leverage. Stay put. I'll loop in a pro bono lawyer by morning. But if things heat up, call this number. Click. The line went dead, leaving only the rain's relentless tattoo. She sank onto the sagging couch, the fabric's musty scent grounding her amid the swirl. Loyalty versus fear. Russo's code sounded noble, never harming innocence, shaped by his sister's loss. But what if Elena and Sophia were the innocents caught in the crossfire? Ambition had evicted them. Now prudence screamed to run. Yet autonomy felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. Not with Sophia's school backpack slumped by the door, a reminder of normalcy slipping away. Dawn broke gray and sodden, the storm ebbing to a drizzle that dripped from fire escapes like hesitant tears. Elena roused Sophia with promises of pancakes from the corner store, masking the night's vigil with forced cheer. Big day, mi amor. Our home's back, and maybe some new friends. Sophia beamed, oblivious, her curls frizzing in the humidity as they stepped out. The SUV's driver nodded from afar, but Elena waved him off. Independence. A small rebellion. They splashed through puddles, the air heavy with wet asphalt and distant diesel fumes from the docks, where cranes groaned like awakening giants. At the clinic, Elena's shift blurred into the familiar grind, triaging a dock worker's lacerated hand from a slipped chain, the metallic tang of blood mixing with antiseptic. Whispers in the break room buzzed thicker today, Hargrove's name on everyone's lips, tied to a botched shipment last week, crates vanishing under cover of fog. Russo's men were spotted, one nurse murmured over coffee, her voice low. Guarding the manifests like they're gold. Hargrove's panicking, evicting folks to free up cash flow. Elena's ears pricked. It fit. But as she bandaged the wound, her patient, a grizzled foreman with tattooed knuckles, leaned in. Heard you crossed paths with Victor. Smart play, lady, but watch the tails. Rivals don't forget a face. Her stomach nodded. Tails. By noon, unease gnawed deeper. During lunch, she stepped out for air, the clinic's back alley reeking of overflowing dumpsters and river mud. A black sedan idled across the street, engine off, driver obscured. Same make as the one from last night? She ducked back inside, heart racing, and dialed the pro bono number. Voicemail. Frustration boiled. Trust was fracturing. Suspicion a constant companion. The afternoon dragged. Patience thinning as the drizzle picked up again. Elena clocked out early, collecting Sophia from the after-school program, where the teacher eyed her warily. Everything okay at home? Sophia mentioned a fancy car yesterday. Elena nodded tightly, bundling her daughter into a cab instead of walking, the fare a reluctant bite from her wallet. The ride home wound past the docks, barges rocking on choppy water, their hulls scarred from rough winters. Sophia pointed at a freighter. Look, Mommy, like the ones Mr. Victor talked about. Elena forced a smile, but her eyes scanned the mirrors, a motorcycle weaving too close, then peeling off. False alarm? Or a probe? They reached the tenement as twilight bled into the sky, the locksmith's van gone, replaced by fresh tire tracks in the mud. Victor's SUV was absent, but a new face leaned against a lamppost. Mid-30s, wiry build, chewing gum with feigned nonchalance. His jacket bulged slightly. Radio or holster? Elena hurried Sophia inside, the stairs creaking underfoot, the air inside stale but safe. As she bolted the door, a knock echoed, sharp, insistent. Ms. Vasquez, Russo sent me. Name's Marco. Perimeter check. Through the peephole, he flashed an ID badge, laminated and official-looking. But Elena's instincts flared. Behavioral tell. His eyes darted left, not meeting the lens directly. Mr. Russo wanted updates on the locks, and a package. She unchained the door a fraction. Slide it through. He complied, a slim envelope, sealed with wax. Inside, a keycard, embossed VR properties, and a note in precise script. Safe house ready if needed. Coordinates enclosed. Trust the code, V. No warmth, just strategy. Marco lingered. Hargrove's men were spotted near the clinic. Nothing direct, but eyes everywhere. You see anything? The motorcycle, the sedan. Elena's throat tightened. Maybe. Why tell me? Victor's code. Protect the innocents. Kids included. His gaze softened briefly, then hardened. But if rivals move, we extract fast. No questions. She shut the door, envelope clutched like a grenade. Sophia played on the floor, humming, but Elena's world narrowed to the window's view. Marco melting into the street, the drizzle veiling his path. The keycard hummed with possibility. A tunnel out, or deeper in. Thunder grumbled anew, and as she pocketed it, her phone lit up. Unknown number, a text. Stay away from Russo, or the girl pays. No sender, just coordinates matching the docks. Hargrove? Rivals? The storm's fury mirrored her dread. Who had Marco's ear, really? And would the next knock bring salvation or the blade? The rain intensified as night deepened over East River Heights, drumming against the tenement's roof like impatient fingers, while the wind howled through the fire escapes, carrying the faint, acrid bite of diesel from the docks. Elena stood frozen by the window, the threatening text glowing on her phone screen like a venomous ember. Stay away from Russo, or the girl pays. The coordinates pinned a spot on the waterfront, Warehouse 17, a hulking relic of rusted girders and shadowed loading bays, where manifests blurred the line between legal cargo and contraband. Her thumb hovered over delete, but the words seared in, twisting gratitude for Victor into a knot of dread. Hargrove's forgery was bad enough. This felt personal, a blade aimed at Sophia's throat. She silenced the phone, shoving it into her pocket, and turned to the living room where Sophia had drifted off on the couch, her small chest rising and falling amid scattered crayons. The apartment's air hung heavy with the must of old plaster and cooling soup from dinner, a fragile sanctuary now laced with peril. Marco's envelope lay on the table, the keycard's edges sharp under her fingertips, a lifeline to a safe house, or a deeper snare. Victor's code echoed in her mind. Protect the innocents. But whose code defined innocence here? She paced to the kitchen, the linoleum cold under her socks, and poured a glass of water that tasted metallic from the pipes. A soft creak from the hallway yanked her back, footsteps on the stairs, deliberate and unhurried. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. The new locks were solid, but the building's back door was a joke, propped open for smokers. She grabbed a kitchen knife, its blade dull but reassuring, and edged toward Sophia, whispering, "Stay quiet, mi amor." The girl stirred but didn't wake, clutching her bear as thunder cracked overhead. The knock came again, sharper this time, muffled by the storm. "Ms. Vasquez, it's Rollins. Need to talk. Urgent." The deputy's voice, strained and low, filtered through the door. Elena hesitated, peering through the peephole. Rain-slicked hat, mustache dripping, clipboard tucked under his arm. No uniform jacket, just a raincoat that bulged oddly at the hip. Sympathy from the eviction night replayed, but now it felt off. Too late. Too insistent. She unchained the door a crack, knife hidden behind her thigh. What now? Locks are changed. Rollins glanced over his shoulder, eyes darting to the alley shadows where puddles reflected the lampost's amber haze. Heard about the forgery. Dug deeper. Hargrove's notary's a ghost, but the real trail leads to Russo's rivals. Irish crew out of the North Docks. They think you're leverage against Victor's squeeze on the shipments. He pushed a damp folder through the gap, papers sodden but legible. Photocopied ledgers showing discrepancies in warehouse logs, dates matching their eviction. Burner phone trace from that text? Pings near here? Get out. Safe house now. Elena's grip tightened on the knife. Behavioral tell. Rollins' free hand trembled slightly, not from cold. Why risk this? Last call was off record. Now you're at my door in a storm? He leaned closer, breath fogging the chain. Russo's code blinds him sometimes. Lost his sister to a setup like this. Blind loyalty. But me? Badge means something. Kid's why I'm here. Sophia mumbled in her sleep, and Rollins' gaze softened fractionally before hardening. Take the folder. Coordinates inside. Russo's safe house is clean, but watch the escort. Infiltration's their play. She snatched the papers, slamming the door and rebolting it, the wood shuddering in the frame. Heart racing, she scanned the folder under the kitchen light. Shipping manifests with crossed-out entries, a circled name, Declan O'Brien, Irish enforcer, and a sketched map of patrol routes around the docks, guard rotations marked in red. Human error stared back. A tampered timestamp on a delivery log, explaining the extras Victor had hinted at. Hargrove's eviction wasn't random. It was a diversion, flushing debtors while rivals probed weaknesses. But the text's coordinates? A trap at Warehouse 17, baiting Victor's protection detail. Sophia sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Mommy, who's knocking?" "Just a friend, baby. Time for bed. For real this time." Elena bundled her into pajamas, the fabric soft against the chill seeping through the walls, and tucked her in with stories of far-off ships, masking the tremor in her voice. As Sophia drifted off again, Elena pocketed the keycard and folder, then dialed Victor's number from the card. Straight to voicemail, his gravelly tone promising a callback. No time. The storm's fury masked distant sounds. Tires hissing on wet streets, a muffled radio crackle from the alley. She cracked the window, peering down. The SUV was back, driver unchanged, but a second vehicle, a nondescript van, idled across the street, wipers slashing rhythmically. Surveillance, confirmed. Elena's mind whirred. Autonomy versus the pull of Victor's world, her ethics clashing with the need for safety. Prudence won. She texted the burner from Rollins. En route. Watch tails. Then, slinging a bag over her shoulder, essentials only, Sophia's bear included, she roused her daughter gently. "Adventure time, mi amor. Quiet like mice." They slipped out the back stairs, the building's rear door groaning on rusty hinges, rain soaking them instantly as they dashed to the alley's mouth. The air reeked of wet garbage and river brine, thunder masking their footsteps. Elena clutched Sophia's hand, scanning for the escort Marco had implied. Headlights pierced the gloom, a black sedan, not the SUV pulling up silently. The window rolled down, Marco's face grim under the dashlight. In, now. O'Brien's men hit the perimeter, staged blackout at the docks. Sophia whimpered as they piled in, the door locking with a solid thunk, leather seats chilled and slick. Marco gunned the engine, tires spinning briefly in the mud before gripping asphalt. Text from an insider. Hargrove flipped, feeding cords to the Irish. Warehouse 17's rigged jammed exits, false alarms to draw Victor's convoy. Elena's stomach dropped. Rolson's warned me. Ledgers show it. Manifests short. Rivals circling. She showed the folder, Marco's eyes flicking to it in the rear view, the sedan's interior humming with the AC's low drone. He nodded tightly, weaving through side streets lined with boarded warehouses, their corrugated walls rattling in the wind. Victor's code holds, no innocence. But betrayal's the cost tonight. Distant sirens wailed, fire trucks or diversions. As they approached the waterfront, the river's black expanse churning under lightning flashes. Sodium lights flickered ahead, a partial blackout plunging half the docks into shadow, generators coughing to life too late. The sedan slowed at a chain-link gate, Marco flashing the keycard to a guard who waved them through without a word. Inside the compound, a fortified safe house disguised as a maintenance shed, the air shifted to dry concrete and faint ozone from backup power. Victor waited in the doorway, raincoat dripping, scar stark in the floodlights. "You made it," he said, pulling Sophia into a quick, protective hug that surprised even Elena. His eyes met hers, gratitude laced with steel. "O'Brien's moving. Intercepted a burner call. We hold here till dawn." But as the door sealed behind them, a low boom echoed from the docks. Staged explosion? Elena's phone buzzed in her pocket. Another text, coordinates shifting to their exact location. Infiltration confirmed. Marco's earpiece crackled, his face paling. "Boss, guard rotation compromised. Who's the turncoat inside? And how long before the blackout swallows us whole?" The safe house's interior was a fortress of stark functionality, its concrete walls reinforced with steel plates that hummed faintly under the strain of backup generators kicking in. The air carried the sharp tang of ozone and machine oil, undercut by the perpetual damp of the waterfront, seeping through invisible cracks. Floodlights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows that danced like intruders across the scuffed linoleum floor. Elena held Sophia close, her daughter's small frame trembling against her side, the girl's wide eyes reflecting the chaos outside as another distant rumble shook the structure, not thunder now, but the controlled pop of a staged diversion, flares blooming red against the storm-lashed sky visible through reinforced slits in the walls. Victor Russo moved with predatory efficiency, his raincoat shedding droplets that pattered like warning shots. He locked the heavy door behind them, the bolt sliding home with a metallic finality that echoed in the confined space. "Marco, seal the perimeter. Check the feeds. Every camera. Every angle." His voice was a low command, gravel-edged from years of barking orders over engine roars and dockside negotiations. But his hand lingered a beat too long on Sophia's shoulder, a gesture of restrained protectiveness that warred with Elena's instinct to pull away. Marco nodded, already tapping at a wall-mounted console, its screen flickering to life with grainy feeds, chain-link fences rattling in the wind, patrol routes looping past stacked shipping containers that loomed like silent witnesses. "On it, boss. Blackouts targeted. Power lines cut near Warehouse 17. O'Brien's crew's using the storm for cover, jamming the radios with some cheap repeater tech. Guard rotations off by 2 minutes. Someone's feeding them times." Elena's pulse thrummed in her ears. The folder from Rollins clutched in her free hand like a talisman. She thrust it toward Victor, papers crinkling. "This. Ledgers from the docks. Manifests don't match. Hargrove's forgery on our eviction? It's tied to short shipments, rivals circling. And that text." She trailed off, showing him the phone's screen, the new coordinates pulsing like a heartbeat. Their location, exposure. Victor's eyes narrowed, scanning the documents under the console's blue glow, his scar pulling tight as he absorbed the discrepancies. A tampered entry for October 10th, crates logged as machinery parts, but crossed out in red, replaced with vague, miscellaneous. Human error or deliberate sabotage, guard rotations listed with subtle shifts, access codes circled like invitations. "O'Brien," he muttered, the name a curse. "Irish snake's been probing my edges for months. Lost a warehouse to him last spring. Fire, ruled accidental. But this?" He tapped the phone. "They're here for leverage. You and the girl, innocence in their eyes, but bait to me." Sophia whimpered, burying her face in Elena's sweater, the fabric damp from the dash through the rain. Elena knelt, smoothing her curls, the scent of shampoo a fleeting comfort amid the metallic bite of the room. "It's okay, mi amor. We're safe here." But autonomy clawed at her. Safe? This bunker, with its humming vents and locked exits, felt like a cage, Victor's code a chain disguised as shelter. Loyalty to him had bought their home back, but fear whispered of the cost. Her independence traded for his shadow world, where betrayals festered like untreated wounds. The lights flickered once, twice, the generators straining with a guttural whine that vibrated through the floor. Marco cursed under his breath, switching feeds to a thermal overlay. Blips of heat signatures moving along the fence line, too deliberate for patrolling guards. Compromised. East gates breached. False alarm pulled the team west. Infiltration, boss. 3, maybe 4 inside the compound. Victor's jaw set, a muscle ticking as he drew a compact pistol from his coat, the slide racking with a soft click that cut the tension like a knife. No flourish, just grim necessity, grounded in the logistics of survival. Burner phones for comms, rotations to counter surveillance, but human frailty. A turncoat guard, perhaps bought with a promise or threat, undid it all. "Elena, take Sophia to the inner room. Panic buttons by the cot. Triggers a convoy from the north docks. Marco and I hold the line." She scooped Sophia up, the girl's weight a anchor against the rising panic, and back toward the narrow hallway, its walls lined with emergency kits and flickering exit signs. "This code of yours. Never harm innocents. Does it cover us if your rivals don't play by rules? Her voice cracked, ethics clashing with the pull of his vow, the way he'd shielded them from Hargrove's greed. Possessiveness flickered in his eyes. Not ownership, but a fierce guardianship shaped by loss. His sister, echoes in every protective stance. It covers everything, he said, meeting her gaze. The words a pledge forged in the fires of past betrayals. Go, trust it. But as she retreated, the console beeped, an intercepted message on Marco's line, garbled but clear. Package secured. Extract via tunnel. Tunnel? The safe house's underbelly, a relic from Prohibition runs, now a potential escape or ambush. The blackout hit fully then, plunging the space into inky void broken only by the console's dying glow and flashlight beams stabbing from Marco's hand. Alarms wailed faintly, jammed signals turning to static. The storm outside a roaring accomplice with wind howling through vents like distant shouts. Footsteps echoed from the main chamber. Soft, probing, not Victor's heavy tread. Elena fumbled in the dark for the inner door. Sophia's breaths quick against her neck, the air thickening with the smell of sweat and fear. A muffled scuffle erupted. Grunt, thud, the sharp crack of fist on flesh. Victor's voice strained but commanding. Marco, flank left. They're in the access corridor. Elena hit the panic button, its beep swallowed by chaos, and dragged Sophia into the dim inner room, barricading the door with a metal cabinet that scraped like nails on chalkboard. Her phone vibrated once. Rollins' burner. Convoy delayed. Roadblock on the bridge. Hold. Betrayal layered on betrayal. Whose hand jammed the exits now? In the blackness, Sophia whispered, Mommy, is Mr. Victor okay? Elena's throat tightened. Torn between fleeing alone and the bond forming in the crucible, Victor's code her reluctant shield. But as shadows shifted under the door, a behavioral tell pierced the gloom. A faint Irish lilt and a hushed curse from the hall. Infiltration deep. The turncoat revealed. Thunder crashed, masking the next move, and Elena gripped the knife from her bag, wondering if the convoy would pierce the blackout in time, or if O'Brien's blade would claim the innocents first, shattering Victor's vow before dawn broke over the river. If this tale already has you hooked, hit the like button. It helps us bring more hidden stories to light. The inner room of the safe house pressed in like a tomb, its air thick with the stale bite of recycled oxygen and the faint, acrid whiff of emergency flares not yet ignited. Elena's back wedged against the barricaded door, the metal cabinet's weight a meager barrier against the shadows slithering under the frame. Sophia clung to her, breaths shallow and rapid, the girl's fingers twisting the hem of Elena's sweater as if it could anchor them both. The blackout's void swallowed sound, amplifying every creak, the generator's distant cough, the storm's relentless barrage on the roof. And now, the muffled thuds from the hall that spoke of a fight unfolding in the dark. Elena's hand trembled around the knife's handle, its dull edge more psychological shield than weapon, her nurse's training screaming to assess, not strike. Triage the threat. Buy time for extraction. Victor's vow echoed in her mind. Protect the innocents. A code forged from his sister's ghost. But autonomy raged against it. A fierce pull to seize control, rather than huddle in his fortress. Loyalty to him had unraveled her simple life. Fear for Sophia twisted it into something sharper, a mother's primal calculus where trust teetered on the edge of flight. A sharp crack split the silence, flesh meeting bone, followed by a guttural curse in that Irish lilt, low and venomous. Russo's down. Get the package. Footsteps shuffled, heavy boots scraping linoleum, then a body slumping against the wall with a wet thud. Elena's stomach lurched. Blood? No graphic spray, just the implication in the labored wheeze that followed. Marco's voice cut through, strained but defiant. Not today, you bastard. Flanks clear, Victor? Victor's reply was a rasp, edged with pain but unyielding. Alive. Cover the corridor. Elena, Button hit. She fumbled for her phone, the screen's faint glow a betrayal in the pitch, illuminating Sophia's pale face streaked with unshed tears. No signal bars, jammed like the radios, but the panic button's confirmation light pulsed green on the wall panel, convoy triggered, delayed by Rollins' warning of the bridge roadblock. Yes, she whispered fiercely, voice barely carrying through the door. But they're close. O'Brien's men. Inside how? Turncoat, Victor grunted, the word punctuated by a scuffle, fabric tearing, a suppressed groan. Guard from the east gate. Behavioral slip. Eyed the kid wrong at rotation change. We missed it. The ledgers from Rollins burned in her memory. Access codes altered, rotations shifted by minutes, human error amplified by greed or grudge. Hargrove's forgery had been the spark, this infiltration the blaze, rivals exploiting the storm's cover to strike at Victor's heart. His code, his innocence. Sophia whimpered. Mommy. It sounds like monsters. Elena pulled her closer, the child's warmth a counter to the chill seeping from the concrete, the room's single vent humming futilely against the encroaching damp. No monsters, mi amor, just loud men arguing, like at the clinic. But inside, conflict tore at her. Victor's possessiveness, that unyielding guardianship, clashed with her independence, the ethics of a woman who'd rebuilt alone after her husband's abandonment. Yet here, in this bunker, his world offered survival. A found family forged in crisis, loyalty tested by betrayal's blade. The door rattled suddenly, a shoulder testing the barricade, the cabinet shifting an inch with a grinding screech that set Elena's teeth on edge. Open up, lass, the Irish voice cooed, laced with mock civility, the accent thick from Belfast docks, not local. We know the girl's in there. O'Brien sends regards. Russo's squeezing our manifests dry. Time to even the scales. A tool scraped, pry bar, lockpick, the metal whining against the hinges. Elena's free hand clamped over Sophia's mouth gently, muffling her gasp, while she scanned the room. Cot bolted to the floor, emergency kit spilling bandages and a flashlight she snatched, its beams stabbing the dark like a lance. Back off! Victor's shout boomed from the hall, followed by a chaotic burst. Fists, perhaps a taser's buzz, bodies colliding with the console's crash. Lights flickered erratically, the blackout fracturing as a generator surged, bathing the space in stuttering yellow. Through the door's slit, Elena glimpsed chaos. Victor grappling a hooded figure, his pistol lost in the fray. Marco circling with a pipe scavenged from the wall, blood, dark and slick, smearing the floor from a shallow cut on Victor's arm. Not fatal, but a cost of the code. No gore, just the gritty reality of confined combat. Breaths ragged, sweat mingling with rain's residue. The pry bar wedged deeper, wood splintering, and Elena acted, ramming the cabinet with her shoulder, the jolt jarring her bones, buying seconds. Sophia, under the cot, now. The girl scrambled, bare in tow, as Elena swung the flashlight like a club, cracking it against the intruder's knuckles through the gap. A yelp, the tool clattering. But the man, wiry, scarred cheek, shoved back, his eyes wild in the flash. Feisty, boss'll like that. Behavioral tell. A tattoo peeking from his cuff. Celtic knot matching the ledger's circled enforcer notes. O'Brien's inner circle, not some hired thug. From the hall, Victor broke free, tackling the man with a roar that shook the walls, the pair tumbling into view, fists flying, a knee to the gut eliciting a woof of air. Marco joined, securing the third intruder with zip ties from the kit, his earpiece crackling. Convoy inbound, 5 minutes. Bridge cleared, Rollins pulled strings. But the lead assailant twisted, drawing a blade, short, serrated, glinting in the stutter light, and lunged at Victor, who parried with his forearm, the cut deepening, blood welling dark against his sleeve. Elena's world narrowed to the door's breach, the knife in her hand a mirror to the intruders, ethics fracturing under pressure. She couldn't wait for the convoy. Autonomy demanded action. "Victor, left!" she called, spotting the man's off-balance stance, a subtle sway from the storm's disorientation. He pivoted, driving an elbow into the throat, the attacker crumpling with a choke. Marco finished the bind, the room falling to heavy breaths and the generator's whine. Victor slumped against the wall, pressing a rag to his wound, eyes finding Elena's through the door. "You held. Code intact." Pain etched his features, but gratitude flickered. Trust earned in the blackout's forge, a bond beyond possession, toward something shared. She unbarricaded slowly, emerging to Sophia's arms, the girl rushing to Victor, who managed a weak smile despite the blood. "Brave like your mom." But as sirens wailed closer, cutting the storm's howl, Marco's console beeped, an intercepted signal, O'Brien's voice faint. "Abort extract, but the ledger's still out there. Find the nurse's phone." Elena's pocket burned, the folder, the texts, clues to the full betrayal, Hargrove's flip exposed. The convoy's lights pierced the windows, engines growling like salvation. But Victor's gaze hardened on her phone. They know too much. Who's feeding them the rest? And what happens when the dawn reveals the turncoat's face among us? The safe house's floodlights surged back to full power as the convoy's lead vehicle, a reinforced truck with Russo's discreet emblem, barreled through the gate, its tires churning mud into the air like a victory plume. The storm had ebbed to a persistent drizzle, the river's choppy surface reflecting fractured sodium halos from the docks beyond, where Warehouse 17 smoldered faintly from the stage diversion, acrid smoke curling like unanswered questions. Elena stood in the doorway, Sophia dozing against her leg, the weight of the night settling into her bones like the damp chill off the water. Victor leaned on Marco's shoulder, his arm bandaged hastily from the kit. Shallow lacerations, no arteries hit, but the sting a reminder of costs paid in flesh and fealty. Medics from the convoy swarmed, efficient shadows in black tactical gear, their radios crackling with updates. Perimeter secure, intruders secured in the van's hold, zip-tied and hooded for transport to a discreet holding site. No cops, just Victor's internal justice, grounded in backroom deals and avoided paperwork. The lead medic, a stern woman with clinic-sharp eyes, triaged Victor on site, her gloved hands probing the wound with the precision Elena recognized from her own shifts. "Stitches needed, but you'll live. Code or no, boss, you push it too far." Victor waved her off with a grunt, his gaze fixed on Elena, a mix of relief and that possessive glint, tempered now by the vulnerability of the fight. "You all right?" he asked, voice rough, stepping closer despite the medic's protest. The air between them hummed with unspoken currents. Loyalty forged in the blackout, her autonomy bent but not broken by the necessity of his world. Sophia stirred, peeking up at him with wide eyes, and Victor knelt, wincing, to ruffle her curls. Tough night for adventurers. Elena nodded, pocketing her phone, the intercepted signal's echo chilling her. O'Brien's crew had the coordinates, the ledger hints, but not the full picture. Yet. We're intact. But that text, the breach. Someone's deeper in your circle than Marco thought. She glanced at the bound intruders being loaded, their faces obscured, but one muttered in Irish, a curse that carried the weight of grudges old as the river itself. Marco approached, wiping blood from his knuckles, the pipe stowed like a relic. Feeds confirm. The turncoat was the East Gate guard. Jimmy Reyes on payroll 6 months. Behavioral tell we missed. Late rotations last week. Excuses about family. Burner traces to O'Brien's North Dock safe house. Hargrove flipped him for a cut of the short manifests. He handed Victor a tablet, screen scrolling with intercepted logs. Access codes pinged at odd hours, a tampered camera angle blind to the breach point. Human error bought cheap, greed over code. Victor's fist clenched, scar pulling white. Clean house tomorrow. No loose ends. But his eyes softened on Elena, the push-pull evident. His magnate's ambition to crush rivals clashing with prudence for her sake. Suspicion of further leaks testing the trust they'd clawed from the dark. The safe house holds till we root them out. Clinic job's still yours. Legit, no strings beyond this. A pledge, believable in the aftermath. His past loss, sister to a similar setup, shaping a vow to shield without owning. She searched his face, ethics warring with the found family's pull. Sophia's small hand in hers, a bridge. No strings, after this. The convoy's engines idled, a low rumble underscoring the tension. Guards fanning out to sweep the perimeter, flashlights sweeping puddles that mirrored the chaos. He straightened, pain masked. After this, choices are yours. But the code stays, protects what's built. Sophia yawned, oblivious, as the medic ushered them toward a waiting SUV, its interior lit warm against the night. As they drove out, the docks receding in the mirrors, cranes silent sentinels, manifest secrets buried in fog. Elena's phone buzzed once more, a blocked sender. Ledger's not the end. Russo's sister? Not accident. Your move. The coordinates shifted again, to the old tenement. Exposure lingered. Whose hand held the final betrayal? And would dawn bring alliance or the blade that shattered everything? The SUV cut through the pre-dawn mist like a shadow slipping free, its tires humming over rain-slicked asphalt that gleamed under sporadic street lamps. The docks faded in the rear view, their cranes frozen silhouettes against the graying sky, the river's murmur a fading underscore to the night's unraveling. Elena cradled Sophia in the back seat, her daughter's head lolled against her shoulder in exhausted sleep, the bear tucked under her arm like a talisman. The interior smelled of leather polish and faint antiseptic from the medic's kit, a sterile calm after the safe house's frenzy. Victor sat up front, his bandaged arm cradled, face etched with the wear of battles won and secrets stirring. Marco drove, eyes flicking to mirrors. The convoy's tail lights a protective chain weaving through East River Heights' emptying streets. Elena's phone burned in her pocket, the latest text a venomous hook. Ledger's not the end. Russo's sister. Not accident. Your move. Coordinates to their tenement. Home. Reclaimed, yet tainted. She glanced at Victor's profile, the scar on his temple catching the dashlight, a map of old wounds. His code, never harm innocents, had shielded them, but exposure gnawed. If O'Brien's crew knew about his sister, the loss that shaped him, then the betrayal ran deeper than a turncoat guard. Hargrove's forgery, the short manifests, the infiltration. It all pointed to a web spun long before her eviction, with her and Sophia as unwitting threads. Stop the car, she said suddenly, voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. Marco's eyes met hers in the mirror, questioning, but Victor twisted, pain flickering across his features. Elena. No. Pull over. The SUV eased to the curb near a derelict warehouse, its chain-link fence rattling in the breeze off the water, the air thick with diesel residue and wet earth. She stepped out, the drizzle cool on her skin, and thrust the phone at Victor as he followed, wincing. This. They know about your sister. The tenement coordinates. Its allure, or the heart of it. We end this now, on our terms. He scanned the message, jaw tightening, the weight of legacy crashing down. His sister, Maria, gone 15 years to a random drive-by, ruled accident by overworked cops who ignored the Irish rival's whispers. It had forged his code, a vow against the chaos that claimed her. Power restrained, innocence preserved. But if O'Brien held proof, twisted it into leverage. Not accident, he murmured, echoing the text. They've been sitting on it, using Hargrove to poke my edges, draw me out. You and the girl? Perfect bait. Test the code. Break it. Marco killed the engine, joining them, his wiry frame tense under the sodium glow. "Boss, convoy's holding back. If it's a setup, it is." Elena's ethics surged, independence afire against the pull of his world. But running feeds them. Rollins' ledgers showed the timestamps. Hargrove's notary forged more than evictions. He backdated shipments to cover O'Brien's cuts. The tenement? Probably where they stashed the real records, the ones proving your sister's hit was ordered. Sensory memory flooded her. The eviction night's metallic rain, the laundromat's steam, Victor's cologne cutting the bleach. It had all led here, human conflicts boiling down to trust versus suspicion, ambition's blade against prudence. Victor's eyes met hers, possessiveness yielding to partnership, the bond tested and tempered. "We go in, extract the proof, burn the rest. Marco, call the secondary team, discreet entry, no guns unless cornered." A nod sealed it, his code intact. Victory with cost, no innocents spilled. They moved as a unit, the drizzle masking their approach to the tenement's back alley, where puddles mirrored the building's fire escapes like fractured windows. The air hung heavy with garbage rot and distant foghorns, the structure's facade scarred by years of neglect, now a stage for final reckoning. Marco picked the service door's lock, old tumblers yielding to his tools with a soft click. While Victor scanned the shadows, burner phone to his ear coordinating the perimeter. Sophia stayed in the SUV with a guard, her safety the linchpin. Elena's heart twisting at the separation but yielding to necessity. Inside, the stairs creaked underfoot, the familiar must of peeling wallpaper now laced with menace. They reached the basement, dank concrete, flickering from a single bulb, shelves sagging with forgotten crates that smelled of mold and ink. Hargrove's ledger waited in a metal lockbox, pried open by Marco's crowbar, papers spilling, manifests with O'Brien's initials scrawled in margins, a faded police report on Maria's death, witness statements buried, a payoff note to the accidental driver. Proof, irrefutable, tying the Irish crew to the hit. Hargrove's forgeries a modern echo to cover ongoing skims. Footsteps echoed from the hall. O'Brien himself, flanked by two shadows, his face gaunt under a hooded coat, eyes gleaming with the fanaticism of old scores. Russo. Knew the nurse'd bring you running. Code's a joke. Your sister's blood bought our silence till now. No blades drawn yet, just tension coiling like the storm's remnants. Surveillance feeds jammed by a handheld device in his hand, explaining the breached rotations. Victor's stance shifted, Code holding him steady. Ends here. Innocents out of it. Always were. Elena stepped forward, folder in hand, her voice cutting the gloom. The ledgers go to the DA, anonymously. Your manifests, the hits, exposed. Walk away, or we all sink. O'Brien laughed, low and bitter, but hesitation flickered, a behavioral tell, ambition cracking under the proof's weight. Marco's team breached the door silently, shadows multiplying, the advantage tipping without a shot fired. The Irishman backed off, hands raised, his crew melting into the alley as sirens wailed distant, Rollins' strings perhaps, ensuring clean extraction. Dawn broke as they emerged, the sky streaking pink over the river, the tenement's secrets reduced to ash in a controlled burn behind the building. Victor's wound throbbed, a cost etched in pain. Exposure lingered in the DA's hands, a sacrifice for justice. But the true treasure gleamed in the quiet. Protection earned, trust woven from betrayal's ruins, a found family where Sophia's laughter would echo free. Weeks later, the clinic bustled under clearer lights, Elena's shifts funded legit by Victor's properties. No strings, just alliance. The apartment stood secure, lock symbolic now of boundaries respected. Sophia played on the stoop, bare in tow, while Victor watched from afar, his code a legacy shared, not imposed. Hargrove faced charges, O'Brien's crew scattered by the ledger's light, but the adventure's heart outlasted the power plays, loyalty's quiet strength, memories of storms weathered. a chosen family that transformed eviction's despair into unbreakable bonds. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales of loyalty, danger, and found family. See you in the next story.